This is the Majority Whip, Mr. Emmer from Minnesota.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome back to Washington, Governor. I'm going to run through a series of facts before I get to my questions, so let's get started. Governor Walz, you signed the Health and Human Services Omnibus Bill into law in May of 2023. That bill expanded Minnesota Care to provide free health care to illegal aliens. You signed the Higher Education Omnibus Bill into law in May of 2023. That bill allows illegals to have their college tuition paid for by the state. You signed the Driver's License for All Act into law in March of 2023, and that bill allows illegals to receive driver's licenses. So, you claim you're not a sanctuary state. You just provide free health care, free college, and driver's licenses to illegal aliens. One reason you're here testifying before us today is because you refuse to cooperate with ICE. While states like Florida and Virginia empower their law enforcement to detain and remove criminal illegal aliens, you, sir, have done just the opposite. Your Attorney General is directing law enforcement to ignore ICE immigration detainers. Do you agree with the Attorney General's guidance?
Hey, Patriots. Welcome back to America First. If you believe in putting American citizens first, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to join our growing movement of Americans who refuse to stay silent while our country is being fundamentally transformed before our eyes. Today, we're diving into explosive congressional testimony that perfectly illustrates everything wrong with the radical left approach to immigration and law enforcement. What you're about to hear should make every American's blood boil, because it reveals a complete contempt these Democrat governors have for the rule of law and the safety of American citizens. Representative Tom Emmer from Minnesota just delivered one of the most devastating takedowns I've seen in Congress, and his target was none other than Governor Tim Walz. Now, for those who don't know, Walz was Kamala Harris's running mate in the 2024 election. So this isn't just about one rogue governor. This is about the entire Democrat Party's radical agenda.
Well, Congressman, it's good to see you again, and thank you for being here. First, I would say my job as governor of Minnesota is to make Minnesota the best state in the nation.
Do you agree with the Attorney General's guidance?
Congressman, what I would say on this is that Minnesota follows all law.
It's a very easy question. And again, if you claim you're not a sanctuary state, you just claim that you support policies. You're not a sanctuary state, but you support policies that prevent ICE from doing their job.
Congressman,
isn't that right?
That is incorrect, Congressman. We follow the same laws when you were in the Minnesota House. The law has not changed,
If you'll allow me, I've got limited time. Well, that's what you tweeted, by the way, sir. And on May 23rd, 2018, you tweeted, quote, "I support policies that keep law enforcement from enforcing federal laws," close quote. On May 17th, just this spring, at the University of Minnesota Law School's commencement ceremony, you said, quote, "Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets." When you said the words modern-day Gestapo, you were referring to ICE agents. Gestapo, by the way, sir, was the official secret police of Hitler's Nazi Germany. So you're calling ICE agents modern-day Nazis. Given the attacks on ICE agents that took place in Los Angeles over the weekend, don't you regard your dangerous inflammatory rhetoric as a problem?
The questions do you want me to answer first?
So, sir, it saddens me that you refuse to express regret from comparing ICE to Nazis. ICE agents are brave Americans who get up every morning, leave their families, and put their lives in harm's way to protect our country, sir. You, at the very least, owe an apology to these dedicated public servants. I will say, sir, inflammatory rhetoric such as yours and the other governors on this panel is responsible for putting a target on the back of every ICE agent who is risking their life to protect our communities. Minnesota is all too familiar, by the way, with the chaos that ensues when you refuse to work with law enforcement to enforce the law. In May 2020, looting, acts of violence, and arson occurred on your watch in Minneapolis after you refused to bring in the National Guard. Governor, your agenda is clear: free health care, free college and driver's licenses for illegals while handcuffing law enforcement when they're trying to protect our citizens and their communities. If you think that's not a sanctuary state, you shouldn't be governor. By turning Minnesota into a magnet for illegals, you have opened up our communities to dangerous criminals, including known terrorists, Gang members, murderers, and child predators, you have sent a resounding message that if you're a hardworking, law-abiding citizen of Minnesota, your safety and well-being are not the priorities of Tim Walz and his administration. But if you're coming to our state illegally, you're not only welcome with open arms, you're entitled to free stuff on the taxpayer's dime. This is absolutely disgraceful. Governor Walz, your sanctuary state agenda has been defined by your utter failure. You have failed to enforce the rule of law. You have failed to uphold our national sovereignty. And most importantly, you have failed the people of Minnesota. The time for radical sanctuary state policy, sir, is over. The voters made that clear last November when they elected President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance. You remember him, don't you? Governor, the time for real leaders and real leadership is now. And with that, sir, actually, Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to introduce into the record the governor's tweet that I referenced from May 23rd, 2018, which makes it clear his hatred for federal law enforcement. Thank you.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you. Yes.
Mr.
Chair
Chairman.
recognizes Mr. Mfume.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I have a unanimous consent request, and I'd like to present both of those to you at the same time.
Proceed.
Okay. I ask unanimous consent that we enter into the record an article from The Hill of
Let's break down the fact that Emmer laid out, because they're absolutely damning. In May 2023, Walz signed legislation providing free health care to illegal aliens through something called Minnesota Care. Think about that for a moment. While American citizens are struggling to pay their medical bills, while our veterans are fighting for proper health care, Walz decided that people who broke our laws to enter this country deserve free medical care paid for by Minnesota taxpayers. But it gets worse. That same month, he signed another bill allowing illegal aliens to have their college tuition paid for by the state. So not only are they getting free health care, they're getting free education while American students are drowning in debt. And in March 2023, he signed the Driver's License for All Act, giving driver's licenses to people who shouldn't even be in this country legally. Now Walz claims Minnesota isn't a sanctuary state, but actions speak louder than words. When you provide free health care, free college, and official government identification to people who entered illegally, what exactly would you call that? This is textbook sanctuary state policy, and Emmer called him out on it perfectly. The most infuriating part is how Walz's administration actively obstructs federal immigration enforcement. His attorney general has directed law enforcement to ignore ICE detainers. Think about what that means. When ICE identifies someone who's here illegally and needs to be detained, Minnesota law enforcement is being told to look the other way. This isn't just about immigration policy. This is about undermining the rule of law itself. Emmer brought up a tweet from 2018 where Walz literally said he supports policies that keep law enforcement from enforcing federal laws. Let that sink in. A sitting governor openly admitting he supports obstructing federal law enforcement. This is the kind of lawlessness that's been normalized by the radical left. But perhaps the most outrageous part was when Emmer confronted Walz about comparing ICE agents to the Gestapo. In May 2024, at university commencement ceremony, Walz called ICE operations Trump's modern-day Gestapo. The Gestapo, for those who need a history lesson, was Hitler's secret police responsible for some of the worst atrocities in human history. And Walz thinks it's appropriate to compare American law enforcement officers to Nazis. This kind of rhetoric isn't just disgusting, it's dangerous. We've seen attacks on ICE facilities. We've seen agents threatened and harassed, and inflammatory language like this from elected officials contributes to that climate of hostility. These are brave Americans who put their lives on the line every day to enforce our immigration laws and protect our communities. Emmer demanded an apology, and rightfully so, but notice how Walz couldn't even bring himself to express regret for his inflammatory rhetoric. This tells you everything you need to know about the character of these radical Democrat politicians. The congressman also brought up the 2020 Minneapolis riots, and this is crucial context. When Minneapolis was burning, when businesses were being looted and destroyed, Walz hesitated to bring in the National Guard. He let his own state burn rather than take decisive action to restore law and order. This is the same pattern we see with immigration enforcement. when it comes to protecting law-abiding citizens. These Democrats are nowhere to be found. What we're seeing in Minnesota is a perfect example of what happens when radical Democrats prioritize illegal aliens over American citizens. They roll out the red carpet for people who broke our laws to get here, while hard-working Americans struggle to make ends meet. Free health care, free college, driver's licenses, and protection from federal immigration enforcement. Meanwhile, American citizens are told to pay the bill and shut up about it. This isn't compassion. It's a betrayal of the American people. When you incentivize illegal immigration with generous benefits, you create a magnet effect. You encourage more people to break our laws and enter illegally because they know they'll be rewarded rather than held accountable. The security implications are staggering. When you refuse to cooperate with ICE, when you provide sanctuary to people who entered illegally, you're not just protecting families seeking a better life. You're also protecting gang members, drug dealers, human traffickers, and yes, even potential terrorists. Not everyone who enters illegally is a saint, and our immigration laws exist for good reasons. Emmer made an excellent point about how this policy sends a clear message about priorities. If you're a law-abiding American citizen in Minnesota, your safety and well-being clearly aren't the top priority. But if you're here illegally, you get free stuff and protection from federal law enforcement. That's not just backwards. It's a fundamental betrayal of the social contract between government and citizens. The good news is that the American people saw through this nonsense in November 2024. They elected Donald Trump and J.D. Vance precisely because they're sick of these sanctuary state policies. They want leaders who will enforce our immigration laws and put American citizens first. This testimony perfectly illustrates why we needed change in Washington. The radical left's immigration agenda isn't just about being welcoming to immigrants. It's about fundamentally transforming America by undermining our sovereignty, our laws, and our national identity. They want to erase the distinction between legal and illegal immigration, between citizens and non-citizens. But here's what gives me hope. Representatives like Tom Emmer are fighting back. They're not afraid to confront these radical policies and demand accountability. They understand that a nation without borders isn't a nation at all, and they're willing to stand up for the American people even when it's politically difficult. The time for this radical sanctuary state nonsense is over. The American people have spoken, and they want leaders who will enforce our laws, protect our communities, and put American citizens first. That's not radical, that's common sense. What do you think about this explosive testimony? Are you as outraged as I am about these sanctuary state policies? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss our coverage of the fight to restore law and order in America. The swamp creatures hate it when we shine a light on their radical agenda, so your support means everything. Until next time, this is America First, reminding you to stay vigilant, stay informed, and never stop fighting for the America our founders envisioned. God bless you all, and God bless America.